Welcome, LA Progressive friends, family, readers, viewers. Dick and I are here today again with Bill Blum. And it's always a pleasure to talk to Bill, who is a former judge and death penalty defense attorney, a glutton for punishment. Bill, welcome.
Thanks. It's always great to be with you guys.
Yeah,
Go ahead, honey.
so your latest article is about Trump's big day, which is not the Republican convention. Uh, what is his big day and why?
It's in July, we know that.
July 11, Judge Juan Merchan will hold the sentencing hearing in the hush money case, wherein he was convicted of 34 felony counts of falsifying business records in order to conceal the hush money payments to Stormy Daniels to enhance his prospects of winning the 2016 election. So there's going to be a sentencing hearing on the 11th, and it would be a rather ordinary hearing, except that this is the former president of the United States who's facing possible prison time, probably 4 years, because each count carries a maximum of four. They'll probably all be run concurrently should prison time be imposed. Theoretically, there's a maximum cap of 20 years under New York law that could be imposed. So Merchan will have a variety of choices. He doesn't have to send Trump to prison. He can give him probation with a jail term. He can release him conditionally without formal probation. That's another alternative disposition under New York law. It's called a conditional discharge. He could give him an unconditional discharge, which basically would give him a little slap on the wrist saying, don't do this again, now get out of here. In the meantime, Trump's going to be given bail on appeal while he pursues his appeal of the sentence and the conviction. And I think to a large extent, as I wrote in the piece, Trump's going to hold the key to his own jail cell here, because what the judge considers in a sentencing hearing is the defendant's personal history, his prior record, and above all, his attitude towards the criminal justice process and towards the judge. And this is where Trump is extraordinarily weak as a defendant coming before a sentencing judge, because he attacks the system, he attacks the judge, and arguably he puts people like witnesses and even jurors in danger. So that's going to be the weakest point. Now, he had a probation interview on Monday, and he got special treatment there. He was allowed to do it by Zoom, well, not by Zoom, virtual hookup from Mar-a-Lago. And his lawyer was allowed to be present. You'd think that a lawyer would allow to be present under New York law in all probation meetings, but that doesn't happen. You have to get permission from the sentencing judge, which Trump was given. And there could be another interview. The probation department will also conduct other interviews of people who know Trump and are familiar with this case. I'm thinking maybe they'll talk to E. Jean Carroll, the woman that Trump was found civilly liable for sexually assaulting and defaming previously. So what the judge will do is he'll take the mitigating factors, such as Trump's age, his lack of a formal criminal record, his service as president, and he'll balance those against the aggravators, which are the seriousness of this offense, the lack of remorse, and his overall personal history. All aggravating factors. And then I think that the key element will be Judge Trump's attitude towards the process. Maybe he'll behave between now and July 11. Maybe he'll behave a little better, because the last thing that Donald Trump wants is any kind of jail sentence. He could also be given home confinement, but I think Donald Trump is scared to death of going into Rikers Island, which is the jail or prison, even if his jail term would only be short, 30 days. This image that he has publicly of being a tough guy is, in my view, phony. He's not a tough guy. So perhaps between now and July 11, he'll behave himself better and he'll get probation without a period of incarceration to start with. However, you can violate a condition of probation. People should keep that in mind. So
So
if
yeah,
he
I want to.
violates probation, then he could be in trouble.
So I want to talk to that because although Trump has already demonstrated on uncountable times that he does not have any control over his behavior, nor does he seem to have any respect for the rule of law. What happens if the judge, if Trump, for whatever reason, is able to control himself between now and July the 11th, and the judge takes that control as an indicator that Trump is somehow, his behavior is somehow redeemable. And then after he's sentenced, then he goes back to his regular ways. Could that be a condition of parole that's been violated?
Well, if he's given probation, it'd be a probation violation, and the
Probation.
judge would still have jurisdiction over that. If the matter's on appeal, I think that Mershon would still have jurisdiction over a probation violation. I think Trump, but that's kind of a gray area because the appellate court would sort of be taking over. And if the appellate court were to reverse the conviction, then the sentence would fall also, and the probation would fall also. But I think in the interim, Trump will still have to be more careful. He's been given rather lenient treatment so far by the judge, who's found him in contempt 2 times for violating the gag order 10 times. And that gag order still remains in effect. So Trump is not supposed to talk about the witnesses or the jurors or court personnel or the families of court personnel. He can criticize Judge Mershon. He can criticize the district attorney, who is an elected official, but he has been told not to criticize those other persons who fall within the scope of the limited gag order. Trump's attorneys are trying to get the gag order lifted, but it hasn't been lifted yet. Now, I think today Trump's sentencing brief is due. Shortly thereafter, Alvin Bragg's, the district attorney's brief will be due, and then the pre-sentence report prepared by the probation officer will be due on June 27. And then the hearing will be July 11. That's kind of a long way away, but that's at the request of Trump's lawyers, who say that they were too busy with the Mar-a-Lago case to appear in a more timely way. And then after sentencing, Trump will file his notice of appeal. That's how it'll go.
Let me just if it weren't for Alvin Bragg, this Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg, I think that we probably wouldn't be sitting here having this conversation today. So Alvin Bragg, in my opinion, did a fantastic job. But Bill, you have a lifelong history, adult lifelong history of being involved either as a judge, as an attorney, as a law professor. What is your take on what Alvin Bragg was able to accomplish?
I think it's really a masterful job because Alvin, the New York Manhattan District Attorney has been investigating Donald Trump on various issues for a long time. And they declined to bring criminal charges against him several times in the past. And when Cyrus Vance was the DA, they came close to bringing criminal charges against him, which were similar to those civil charges that were brought by Attorney General Letitia James, where he's inflating the value of his property to get sweetheart deals from banks and insurance companies. Alvin Bragg didn't like that as a crime for a criminal prosecution, but he and his team studied New York law, and they realized that this guy, Trump, has been falsifying his internal business records. Specifically, he's been paying money to Michael Cohen to reimburse him for the payments to Stormy Daniels, but the payments weren't listed as reimbursement. They were listed as attorney's fees. That's false. Under New York law, simply falsifying business records is only a misdemeanor, and the statute of limitations would have run. And in order to make it a felony, the falsification has to be done for the purpose of committing or concealing an additional crime. That's New York law. What's the additional crime? Well, one additional crime, and it's the one that the prosecution argued in closing and presented evidence of during the trial, is a New York statute which makes it a crime to conspire to conceal or commit election fraud. Two or more people conspire to affect the outcome of an election by unlawful means. So that's the second crime. So you have falsification of business records, that's the base crime. And then the second crime is conspire to influence the outcome of an election by unlawful means. That's the second crime. The unlawful means do not have to be crimes in and of themselves. They just have to be unlawful. So what's an unlawful means here? Michael Cohen pays Stormy Daniels $130,000 in hush money, which is an in-kind election contribution that's well in excess of the $2,700 limit that was then in effect for individual campaign contributions. Plus, it was not reported to the Federal Election Campaign Commission. So that was the unlawful means. So you put it all together and you have a really tight case. You have falsified records for the purpose of influencing the outcome of an election by unlawful means. And that's what Alvin Bragg put together. And he had a great trial team, really experienced trial lawyers, and they really made mincemeat of the prosecution, of the defense in this case. The defense only, they ended their case with Robert Costello, who used to be Michael Cohen's lawyer, and he imploded on the stand. He angered the judge and just fulminated about the way that this case was absurd and a political persecution, and that did nothing to help the defense in the case. So at the end of the day, the jury, when you subtract from the time spent in deliberation, giving the instructions and asking questions and dealing with motions between the parties about how to respond to the questions, really only deliberated about 8 hours. So it was a pretty quick verdict, and not by a jury that was tilted in favor of Trump. You had a lot of people, by virtue of voir dire, that we know got their news from conservative sources, and this was not your typical liberal Manhattan jury. So it was a masterful job by Alvin Bragg. Now, I understand he's going to be testifying before Congress, the House Judiciary Committees, hauling him in to explain what he did. He's going to do that after sentencing. And that should be a real, sideshow, a Jim Jordan clown circus. But Alvin Bragg, terrific job.
So that's a wonderful examination of the legal aspects, the important legal aspects, but you're also a political observer. And what we've seen is, as you might expect, his base has roused up and accused Alvin Bragg and the New York people and the judge of being stooges for Biden, which is just false. But there does seem to be, there's possibly, or do you think there's possibly some movement of persuadable voters in the middle, Republicans who aren't Trumpskis and independents? Do you think there's enough movement away from Trump that he doesn't get to pull his shenanigans on us for another 4 years?
Well, I think the early polling shows some attrition of support from independents for Trump. And if you look at the polls, they're very, very close now. Some have Biden ahead by a small margin. Others Trump ahead by a small margin, whereas before Trump was pretty much uniformly ahead by not a great margin. So I think that this verdict is having an effect, but by itself, it's not going to turn the tide. And there are many reasons for that. And one of them, of course, is Joe Biden's age. Regardless of his policies, some of which are pretty good, he's 81 years old and he looks the part. And at times he really does look the part. It might not affect the way that he thinks. There was a psychologist who was on someone's show who said Biden has an old brain, but Trump has a broken brain. And an old brain can still function and make good judgments, even if it's a little slower. But that's the big Achilles heel in terms of the election, is that Biden, no matter what he does, the economy in this country is stronger than any other countries in the world. He doesn't inspire a lot of great confidence. And that's where we're at. So I do think that this verdict helps, but it's not the answer. It's not the answer to defeating the MAGA movement that Trump has started, which is morphing into every day more and more clearly a neo-fascist American movement. And that has to be defeated on many fronts. And the legal front is just one of those fronts. You know, we don't have a Supreme Court which is geared to upholding our civil liberties and our civil rights anymore. Just today, the Supreme Court handed down another abomination on guns with the bump stock ruling, and we're still waiting for the Supreme Court to issue its decision on the absurd claim that Trump has absolute immunity as a former president for all January 6 related offenses. And that's a shame, because by delaying, of course, the court is preventing the January 6 case, which was slated to begin in Washington, D.C. They are preventing that from going to trial before the election. That could have been a real game changer. So there's a lot of headwinds that we still face, but this is a very good victory, and people should feel good about it, and it will help. The question is how much it will help. At this point, it looks like it's going to help at the margins, and that may be all that Biden needs, but that remains to be seen.
Wow. Well, now I'm going to ask you a question about something that I don't know that you know anything about, but I'm curious, and perhaps you have an answer to this. Does the Judge Merchan, does he get any special security? I'm wondering, does his own personal security and security of his family and friends, could that possibly weigh in? I mean, he's a human being.
Well, that's difficult to say. You know, judges come under attack a lot more than people realize at times. I did a cover story once on physical attacks on judges for California Lawyer magazine, and it's amazing how often they occur. They don't have to be political cases. In fact, the one kind of court where physical attacks on judges in California at least seemed to be most prevalent was domestic relations court. Cases involving divorcing spouses, involving child custody and childcare, child support. I think that Merchan is getting additional security. I believe it's available to him. The judge in the previous case brought by Letitia James, Judge Erdogan, had special security, I know. Will it weigh on him? My sense is that Judge Merchan is going to call this right down the middle, and he's going to come up with the best sentencing disposition that he can, whatever that is. It may not please everybody, but that's not the judge's job. The judge's job is not to please everyone. It's to do justice. I have confidence in this judge.
So you're a former judge yourself. What verdict are you gonna announce?
I think he's going to get probation with a suspended sentence. And the suspended sentence will be a year in prison. That's my prediction. We'll see how it comes up.
Wow.
Yeah, well, that's what I asked.
I don't think he's going to be given. I don't think he's going to be given an unconditional discharge. Even if it's a conditional discharge, one of the conditions will be you violate no more laws. You don't attack the witnesses in this case. And if you do, we're going to take away the conditional discharge. And this is the sentence that you're going to get. I'm going to suspend it in the interim. Now, it won't be imposed while the appeal is being taken, but it will be after the appeal is over. And then who knows what happens, because if he wins the election, how do you imprison a president of the United States? If he loses the election, then I think Trump's got jail in his future then. If not in New York, then as a result of the Washington, D.C. case, which will eventually go to trial.
Wow. Well, this has been a wonderful, another wonderful conversation with Bill Blum. Very enlightening. We're all looking forward to the July 11th sentencing hearing and the outcome of that. And we'll be seeing you hopefully sometime around
Oh,
that time.
and probably before, after the court hands down its crucial pending decisions that remain in this term, including the immunity case.
So nice talking to you, Bill.
Nice talking to you again.
All right.
Always.
Take care. So long.
Okay.
Thank you for sticking around. If you like the LA Progressive content and the discussions we have here, please consider clicking the subscribe button below and also give us a thumbs up. That helps to grow our audience by feeding the algorithm, which helps to get this content in front of more eyes. Thanks for stopping by. We really appreciate your support.